Hey, what's going on, everyone? Welcome back. We are looking at the final look for week 2, my final rundown of the week, the guys that I'm interested in at each position. As you can see, it's a new format this week. Let me know what you guys think. I'll have probably, if you guys like this format, I'll probably have this once a week and then the regular format once a week as the first look, and then the final look I could have a little bit more polished. Feel like it's a little bit, more visually appealing, but, it's up to you guys. Let me know. You can leave a comment or leave a like. So let's get started with this week. As always, appreciate it if you hit the thumbs up and down below, and subscribe if you haven't already. If you want to follow on Twitter, it's at the DFS Process. Links in description. If you want to join for Sunday, the website links in description. Looking to bounce back on Sunday. Pretty bad week 1. Just kind of forgotten about it. Hopefully this week goes a lot better. I kind of like where I'm at this week. Hopefully things kind of at the end of Sunday, the guys that I'm on, hopefully they do well, but and gotta wait to play the games, obviously. But let's get started. I do feel pretty good about this week. These are the 5 quarterbacks that have my most interest in this week. I am staying in the 6K range, and that's primarily because I want to be paying up for wide receiver, and I feel like there's so much value in the 6K range. You can have all 5 of these guys can put up a monster score, and you won't be shocked. So I don't feel like I need to pay up for Lamar Jackson or need to pay up for Mahomes. I want to get my running backs, my solid running backs. I want to pay up my wide receiver. Go with the nice mid-range or mid-range price quarterback. Has somebody in the 6K range. These 5 look really good. We'll start at the top with Aaron Rodgers, 6,900 against Detroit. The Lions are going to be pretty bad this year in terms of their secondary. They traded away Darius Slay in the offseason to the Eagles. They got eaten alive by Mitch Trubisky out of anybody in the fourth quarter. And I don't think that's that's just a one quarter thing. I think it's going to carry into this week. They're going from facing Mitch Trubisky in a pretty bad offense to facing Rodgers. With Adams and Aaron Jones, this team can put up a bunch of points. Their 6,900 price for Rodgers is a little bit expensive, so I think he might get overlooked this week. But Rodgers has the upside. We all know it. Second guy is, this is all based on pricing, and these guys are also playable on Fanduel. I just felt like putting the Draftkings price on there, but these are the same guys I like on Fanduel. Josh Allen is 6,700 against Miami. He showed off the upside that he's probably going to have this year. I think he's going to have a big year for fantasy. I love these quarterbacks that can put up 100 yards rushing and put up 300 yards passing. Josh Allen is going to have a lot better chance this year to have a good year. With the more weapons that he has on offense. He has Stephon Diggs and John Brown, 2 guys that can stretch the field. He has a quality running back in Singletary. His second year, hopefully he makes some improvements. They just have a lot of guys. So Allen against Miami, they're going to give up yardage. They're going to give up, a good amount of rushing yards, passing yards, points. Definitely Allen at 6,700 is another quarterback that I have interest in this week. Matt Ryan at 6,600 against Dallas. This is my favorite game stack of the slate. They have the highest total at it's like 53.5 right now. Both offenses are just stacked. You have Matt Ryan, Julio, Ridley, Gurley going into Dallas facing off against Prescott, Elliott, CeeDee Lamb, Cooper, Gallup. There's so many weapons on both sides. The Dallas Cowboys defense, they have some quality guys, especially in the front 7. Their secondary is going to be a little bit weak this year. Byron Jones is now in Miami. He was a quality guy in their secondary last year. They have some young guys that are, we don't really know if they're going to become great players, but I think Matt Ryan can carve them up. He's a veteran. They love to throw the ball, and that's great for Matt Ryan at 6,600. Next up, we have Matt Stafford at 6,200. This is just basically the price tag, and I think he's not going to get a lot of love. Matt Stafford looked great through 3 quarters, and then they kind of fell apart in the fourth quarter. He had a chance to win it. He did everything that he could. He drove his team down the field, had a game-winning touchdown, and then the running back, Swift, just dropped it. He was in the end zone. He was open. That's not Matthew Stafford's fault. So Matt Stafford did everything he could. He would have had another 4 or 5 fantasy points with that touchdown pass that he should have had. So I think he looks fine against Green Bay. If I do expect Rodgers to go off, then hopefully he's going to be throwing quite a bit. So I'm expecting this game to be close. I really hope it's close. I know it's probably going to be high scoring, but I just hope it's close and the Lions can stay in it. And I think Matthew Stafford, Marvin Jones stack is going to be pretty different on DraftKings. I think a lot of people will play Marvin Jones, but not that many people have Matthew Stafford paired with him, and Matthew Stafford can lock into one guy and just throw to him all game. So hopefully that is going to be Marvin Jones this week. And then just the dumbest price tag on DraftKings this week at quarterback is Kyler Murray. I mean, don't know what they were thinking. He should not be cheaper than Matthew Stafford. He shouldn't be cheaper than half the guys that are priced above him. With just the upside that he presents with his legs, he almost had 100 yards rushing week 1. He had like 93. He lost some, I think, maybe due to a sack at the end of the game or something pretty weird happened at the end of the game where he lost his bonus. But Kyler Murray at 6K is just too cheap. You should just put him in there. They're going to put up some points this week against Washington. He has a very good offense with Hopkins, and he has Kenyon Drake in the backfield. I'm not worried about this Washington defense slowing him down at all. Next up at running back, I will not be paying all the way up for McCaffrey this week. Nothing against McCaffrey this week. It's just that I prefer to spend up at wide receiver, and we have plenty of good options at running back this week, whether it be in the mid-range or paying up. If I was paying up, it would be for Ezekiel Elliott and Derrick Henry. Out of the two, I like Henry a little bit more just because he's a little bit cheaper. No A.J. Brown this week for the Titans, so Henry might get a couple more touches. We'll probably get a little bit more focus of the offense, although he already gets a huge portion of that. I like Elliott quite a bit too. Thing is that Elliott, there's so many guys to feed on Dallas that there's going to be some spots where he should go off and then he just doesn't get into the end zone because Cooper goes in for catches 2 touchdowns. Maybe Prescott runs in for 1 like he usually does a couple times. Well, probably a handful of times a year. They just have a lot of weapons, whereas if the Titans put up like 30 points, it's probably going to be Derrick Henry getting into the end zone multiple times. So for that reason alone, the fact that he's cheaper, the fact that the Jags have just an god-awful run defense, Henry can run all over them this week. And then there's so many great running backs below 7K. Raheem Mostert, 6,400 against the Jets. I like that a lot. Both teams are pretty banged up this week. The 49ers are going to be without George Kittle. Deebo Samuel's on IR right now, so they're banged up. The Jets are super banged up with the receivers. No Crowder for them, so they're going to be throwing the ball to no Crowder for them and no Le'Veon Bell, so they really are really thin with weapons. Their number one option this week is going to be Rashard Perriman. So both teams are injured. For Raheem Mostert at 6,400, I think he's just a pretty good bargain. He has so much upside. He's another guy that can get you 20 touches, maybe 15 carries, 5 catches. Had a long touchdown catch last game. Didn't really break anything on the ground, but he was getting way more snaps than Tevin Coleman out of the backfield. So he's solidified himself as a number 1 guy. Good matchup this week against the Jets defense. Kenyon Drake, I mean, the Cardinals are just so easy to stack if you want to. You could stack Kyler Murray, 6K, Kenyon Drake, 59, and Hopkins at 77. Those 3 have so much upside in the world. You're not even using a large portion of your cap like you would expect for the amount of talent that those 3 represent and that 3-man stack represents. So Drake against Washington, feel pretty good about him. David Johnson, this is kind of not think he's not going to get a lot of love because he's sandwiched in between Kenyon Drake and Jonathan Taylor, but he's going to be getting a couple more volume with Duke Johnson out, so get a couple more catches. He can catch the ball as well, so I like those running backs that give you upside in the passing game and the running game. Jonathan Taylor is this week's chalk. It's tough to get away from it against this Minnesota young defense. They are going to get carved up this year by quality teams. The Colts have some good weapons on offense. Rivers, he can have a good game every now and then. They have good weapons on the outside with Hilton, and Paris Campbell looked very good in his second, to start his second year off. And Jonathan Taylor, a rookie, looked really, really good at Wisconsin. I think he's going to have a very good year. With Marlon Mack out, the door is open for him, and I think he's going to capitalize. And then Melvin Gordon at 5,200 against Pittsburgh. It's just too cheap of a price tag for Melvin Gordon. He has a lot of talent to be that cheap. The only reason he's that cheap is because everybody assumed he would be splitting carries with Lindsey or maybe getting 60% of the work, but Lindsey is out this week, so Gordon should be getting 75-80% of the carries at least. And even though the matchup is tough, he's Melvin Gordon. He has a nose for the end zone, and he's going to get a lot of volume. All right, moving on to wide receivers this week. These are the guys that I have my interest in. I will be paying up a receiver. I will probably have myself paying up for 2 out of the 3 of Adams, Hopkins, and Jones. All 3, I think, can go nuts this week. Adams looks to be the most popular this week, and for good reason against his Lions defense. I think Hopkins looks amazing. He had, if he found his way into the end zone, then he would have been one of the highest scoring wide receivers on the slate. And Jones against Dallas, just going to be a high scoring game. I like all three of them. I probably like Hopkins just a little bit more because he looks to be a little bit less owned. I like Kyler Murray to stack with him. In the 6K range, you have Amari Cooper. If you want to stack that Atlanta-Dallas game, probably should be a pretty high scoring. Cooper had 12 targets last week, 12 or 14 targets, definitely over 10. Had a lot of short catches, didn't do much, but it's a spot this week that he can definitely break the defense. Marvin Jones Jr. against Green Bay. I like him quite a bit. No Kenny Golladay this week. He kind of disappointed in the first game, so maybe some people jump off of him, but I'm going to be all over that. Price tag. I love T.Y. Hilton at 5,700. He is looking to bounce back. He did get 9 targets, so that was good to see against in the first week, but he just kind of struggled to get any long catches. He did have a couple of drops, which hurt, but hopefully in the second game, him and Rivers get more on the same page. They were on the same page during training camp, so hopefully they are able to get back on the same page against a pretty bad, very bad Minnesota secondary. And then speaking of Campbell, if you want to go cheaper, you definitely can play him. I won't have Hilton and Campbell in the same lineup, but I definitely think Campbell is a viable wide receiver too. And then Brashard Perriman at 3,800, he's going to be the number one option for the Jets this week. Just going to get a handful of targets. That's all I can really say. He's going to get some targets. He's going to get some catches. He's cheap. It's not a good matchup, but who knows? Maybe he can get a long one. Like Crowder last week, he did show his upside last year at the end of the season with Jameson Winston. He had a couple of monster games when they were banged up with Godwin and Evans hurt. So Perriman at 3,800, it could be a little bit of the lower owned cheap punt play that could pay off. All right, and over at tight end this week, we have 5 guys that I have some interest in. We'll also be kind of spending in the mid-range for tight end. Don't see myself paying up. The guys that I have interest in this week is T.J. Hockenson, no Golladay. Expecting a pretty high-scoring game. He's going to get looks from Matthew Stafford, being the second option for the team. Hayden Hurst. Falcons have a lot of guys that can get a lot of targets, but expecting a pretty high-scoring game against Dallas this week. Hayden Hurst, 4,600, showed some upside last year with Lamar Jackson. Matt Ryan does like to throw to his tight ends. We saw Hooper have a career year last year. So just a matter of time before him and Matt Ryan get on the same page. Jonnu Smith, 4,200 against Jacksonville. Really good spot here. No A.J. Brown, so going to get a lot more targets this week. Ryan Tannehill just doesn't have that many weapons to throw to without A.J. Brown. So definitely see Jonnu Smith being a lot more involved in the offense this week. Logan Thomas looks a little bit worse than I liked early in the week just because he got more value opened up this week with Jonnu Smith and Hockenson, with some of the injuries on their respective teams. So Thomas is a little bit below how much interest I had him in early in this week, but I still think he's playable against Arizona. We know Arizona has always been the team that's gotten destroyed by tight ends every single week for multiple years now. And then Chris Herndon, 3,400, just a cheap guy that's going to get looks from Sam Darnold with them missing their 2 biggest pieces in the in their offense with Bell and Crowder out. And that's kind of it for the video. These are just my game stacks that I like. Green Bay, Detroit, expecting a high-scoring game there. Love Dallas, Atlanta, and Minnesota, Indiana. I like the Indiana side a lot more, but you could run it back on Minnesota with Cousins and Thielen and Cook. But yeah, going to be focusing on primarily these 5 to 6 teams, and then I really like kind of focusing in on the Dallas game a bit, especially the Falcons side. I like that a lot. And then I like the Cardinals. They're going to be my favorite team. I don't want to stack them this week with the Redskins, but as part of an individual stack, Arizona is probably at the top of the list on Draftkings. So that is it for the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this new format. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and best of luck tomorrow.